In the beginning, female lead, Jo Tien, is dreaming that she's running in a race, giving her best to win. But during the race, she falls. Then, as she tries to get up, her cat appears in front of her and says, "Your leg has grown so long." When Jo Tien tries to get up, she realizes the truth about her leg. She used to be an athlete, but now, due to an injury in her leg, she can't participate in races anymore. She says to her cat, "You're so cute. When I first saw you, I decided to make you my pet." Then the cat, a bit annoyed by her affection, leaves and Jo Tien's mood turns a little sad. Today, Jo Tien has an interview. On her way to the interview, she stops at her friend's shop where she has coffee, and there's also a kitten fairyland nearby. She spots a black cat looking toward the door. As Jo Tien opens the door, the cat takes the chance and runs away. Seeing the cat running, Jo Tien chases after it. Next, we see male lead Ji Chen's. He is the CEO of his company. He's heading toward his car. A black cat is sitting under his car. Just as he notices the cat, Jo Tien approaches. She's running and tries to stop herself but ends up falling on top of Ji Chen. They almost kiss, but Ji Chen covers his face with his hand. Because of Jo Tien, Ji Chen's heartbeat starts racing. She apologizes and says, "I'll call an ambulance, but the ambulance has already arrived." Surprised, Jo Tien says, "I didn't call the ambulance, so how did it get here?" Ji Chen's assistant called the ambulance, and they take Ji Chen to the hospital, leaving Jo Tien worried. In the next scene, it's shown that Ji Chen came from the headquarters to this company and has already fired many people. Jo Tien goes for her job interview. An employee tells her the interview has been canceled. She says, "How can this be? I need to talk to the CEO." He says, "It's not possible." As Jo Tien starts to leave, she gets a call from her friend asking to meet up. They meet, and her friend advises her to go to a different department since there are no positions for an athlete. Jo Tien agrees. Then we see Ji Chen entering his office where he's holding an online meeting. Someone asks him about the girl who was fired, and he says, "I want my company to progress, so she had to be fired." He ends the meeting. Later, Jo Tien's friend shows her the way to the office and leaves. Jo Tien reaches the office, but the room she enters turns out to be Ji Chen's office. Ji Chen is bending down to pick up his tablet under the table, and Jo Tien, not noticing, steps on his hand. When he looks up and sees her, his heartbeat starts racing again. At this point, his assistant arrives and asks Ji Chen, "Are you okay?" Ji Chen replies, "Yes." When Jo Tien hears Ji Chen's name, all the previous incidents flash back in her mind, and she quickly runs away from there. Then, Ji Chen stops Jo Tien because he knows she's here for an interview. She thinks he shouldn't remember the previous incidents. Then, Ji Chen says, "Show me your documents." She refuses, but when the assistant asks for the documents slip out of their hands and hit Ji Chen's face. He looks at her name and decides not to hire her. She says, "How can you reject me without even interviewing me?" Ji Chen responds, "It's my choice whether to hire or fire someone." After this, Jo Tien's friend, who sells coffee, attracts girls to his shop because of his handsome looks. Jo Tien arrives there looking sad and says, "I was supposed to have an interview today. I met the CEO this morning, and things went terribly, so he didn't hire me." Her friend replies, "It's okay. You can run this cafe." She says, "You're really nice, but I want to take on a challenge." Later, when Jo Tien is heading home, Ji Chen's car is also on the same path as her house. Jo Tien reaches home and starts looking for her cat, but can't find her. Meanwhile, Ji Chen, taking out food from his car, spots a cat by his car window and says, "You look just like my cat, Jinian." At the same time, Jo Tien is sad because her cat is missing. On the other side, Ji Chen notices that the food he gave the cat has been finished, so he goes to get more. When Ji Chen runs out of meat, he cuts up some fish to feed the cat. After eating, he takes the cat outside. Later, Jo Tien's cat reaches a security guard who recognizes it. After searching everywhere, Jo Tien is on her way back home. The security guard returns the cat to her and says, "A handsome guy brought this cat here. Take care of it." Jo Tien thanks the guy and takes her cat home. Upon arriving home, Jo Tien finds a note in her cat's collar that reads, "Your cat is very nice. You should put a tracker on her collar so you'll always know where she is." Reading this, Jo Tien thinks it's a good idea. On the other side, Chao Yi approaches Ji Chen and says, "Why did you fire my agent? Do you think just because you have powers you can fire anyone?" Ji Chen replies, "I saw the reports and she wasn't good, so I had to fire her." In the next scene, Jo Tien is at home when she receives a call from her friend. Her friend says, "The company needs a new agent, come and apply." Then, Jo Tien arrives with her friend at the location where Chao Yi's photo shoot is happening. Her friend leaves after dropping her off. Jo Tien approaches him and says, "I'm here to interview." Just then, Ji Chen arrives, sees her and says, I told you that you won't get a job here. Leave. Zhou Tian replies, I didn't come here to interview with you. I've come to Qiao Yi. It's up to him to keep me or let me go. So Qiao Yi decides to keep her on the job. Ji Chen tells him, this girl will cause trouble for you, but Qiao Yi doesn't listen. Then, Qiao Yi's photo shoot begins, and a light nearly falls on him. Zhou Tian, seeing it about to fall, kicks a ball, saving Qiao Yi, but the ball then hits Ji Chen. In the next scene, Ji Chen is holding his head in pain, while Zhou Tian is being interviewed nearby. Finally, Ji Chen says, all right, we'll keep you for 3 months. If you work well during that time, only then will you be made permanent. Otherwise, you'll be fired. Zhou Tian replies, all right. In the next scene, Zhou Tian returns home and says to her cat, look, I'm starting work at a new company tomorrow, and I know Ji Chen will try to find faults in me, but I'll make sure I don't make any mistakes, so he won't have anything to point out. She then goes to sleep. At night, she receives a call from Ji Chen, who says, I sent you an email. This work needs to be done before you come to the company. At first, she's shocked, but under his threats, she replies, yes, all right, I'll do it. The next day, she arrives at the company and tells Ji Chen, the work you gave me, I've completed it. Ji Chen tells her, now go get me some ice cream, and if you're not back in half an hour, I'll fire you. Zhou Tian quickly gets into a taxi and realizes, I have very little time left, but now there's a traffic jam. How will I reach on time? She rushes to the office with the ice cream just in time. Ji Chen, however, doesn't take it and heads to his office. Then, Zhou Tian receives a call from Qiao Yi saying, a delivery box should have arrived for me. Please, bring it to me. Hearing this, Zhou Tian goes to pick up the delivery box. At that moment, she receives an urgent call to head to the meeting room immediately. Zhou Tian hands the box to a friend and rushes to the meeting room. In the room, everyone starts placing their orders. Zhou Tian notes everything on her phone. Then Qiao Yi calls her asking, why haven't you reached here yet? She replies, just wait a bit, I'm on my way. She asks everyone, could you all repeat your orders? Ji Chen says, do I really need to repeat it a third time? Showing her phone, Zhou Tian says, look, I've recorded everything. No need to repeat it. Ji Chen tells her, quickly, go get everything. If you don't return within half an hour, you're fired. She quickly rushes out. While looking at the box, she gets a call and the delivery gets canceled. Zhou Tian then collects everyone's orders and returns to the meeting room saying, here, I've brought your order. Later, Zhou Tian reaches home, and on the other side, Ji Chen also returns home, only to find the same cat that visited before sitting in his house. Meanwhile, Zhou Tian is searching for her cat again. Ji Chen, feeding the cat, says, your owner must be worried about you. The cat looks at him. After hearing his words, the cat heads to the door. When Ji Chen lets it out, it runs off on its own. Ji Chen thinks, looks like it remembers my place well. Meanwhile, Zhou Tian, searching for her cat, is approached by the same security guard, who tells her that the same guy returned her cat again. Take care of it. Don't let it roam around, as it could get hurt on these busy streets. Zhou Tian then notices something on the cat's collar and reads it. It says that he has added a positioning collar this time. If you don't mind, I'm happy to help care for it. Taking care of it brings me joy. Later that night, as Zhou Tian is about to sleep after finishing Ji Chen's work, he calls her again, assigning her more tasks. The next morning, as Zhou Tian is heading out, she observes where her cat sneaks out and places a note around its collar, saying, hi, Mr. Nice. This is a female cat named Choo Choo. I live in building number 6. Choo Choo loves the outdoors, so I let her roam freely. If she comes to you, please take good care of her. If you could give me your address, I'd like to thank you in person for Choo Choo. Choo Choo heads to Ji Chen's home. When Ji Chen hears her, he opens the window, lets her in, and notices the note on her collar, which he reads. The note also says, I'd like to repay you for the collar. Could you add me to your chat so I can return the money? When Zhou Tian arrives at the office, she says, Ji Chen kept me up all night. Everyone looks at her. Zhou Tian adds, I finished work by 5 a.m. and only got 2 hours of sleep. In the next scene, Zhou Tian starts working with Ji Chen. Then Kai Wen, Ji Chen's assistant, comes in and tells him there's an urgent meeting. Ji Chen says, all right, tell the driver to wait downstairs. Kai Wen replies, the driver went with the actors and actresses, so there's no one available. Kai Wen then offers, why don't I take you? I'll get you there fast. But Ji Chen doesn't trust him at all. Ji Chen tells Zhou Tian, you'll be my driver. When Zhou Tian gets in to drive, Ji Chen asks, do you even know how to drive? She replies, yes, I do. I've played a lot of racing games. Hearing the word race, Ji Chen's eyes widen. Zhou Tian drives as if she's in a race, speeding and taking sharp turns. Seeing this, Ji Chen starts feeling sick and even vomits in the car. Zhou Tian manages to get him to the meeting before time. Later, when she returns home, we see Ji Chen looking up her WeChat name and sending her a friend request, which Zhou Tian accepts, entering the WeChat world. Both wear masks, hiding their identities. Zhou Tian names him Cat Caretaker Number 2. Zhou Tian says, "How much was the collar? I want to pay you back." Ji Chen refuses, saying, "No, I won't take the money." They continue chatting about their work. Then Zhou Tian says, "My boss's face looks like a crocodile. He keeps giving me work all the time." Ji Chen asks, "Do you work at a zoo?" She replies, "No." Then Ji Chen too starts complaining about his assistant on WeChat, and so they chat about many things. The next day, Zhou Tian arrives at Qiao Yi's place. She hands him a file, and at the same time, a dress from his designer arrives as well. Zhou Tian says, "Ji Chen has done a lot of work for you." Qiao Yi replies, "You're really singing his praises." Zhou Tian responds, "Business is business. Honestly, I don't like his personality at all, but what he's done for you is truly impressive." Just then, Ji Chen arrives from behind and says, "Thanks for praising me so much." Qiao Yi welcomes him. Later, when Ji Chen is about to head home, Zhou Tian is following right behind him. When he gets in the car, Zhou Tian stands outside. He rolls down the window and asks, "Why are you here?" Zhou Tian replies, "Well, it's my time off, so I should be heading home too." Ji Chen says, "No, you're an assistant. You should be working 24/7. Zhou Tian replies, "My duty hours are over, so what would I even do staying here?" Then he lets her sit with him. In the next scene, Zhou Tian and Ji Chen are in the office when Kai Wen arrives and says, "There's bad news. The book we were about to launch has already been launched by someone else." Hearing this, everyone gets worried because they were just about to release the book. Ji Chen then takes Zhou Tian along to Qiao Yi's house. They see a crowd gathered outside his home. Zhou Tian is about to go out, but Ji Chen stops her and says, "People recognize me too because I'm his agent." Saying this, he leads her through a different route. When they reach his house, Zhou Tian says, "We shouldn't intrude into someone's personal life like this." Ji Chen says, "Don't worry, I have zero interest in your personal life." They notice Qiao Yi isn't around, but they hear the sound of the shower from the bathroom. Hearing this, Ji Chen starts heading towards the bathroom, with Zhou Tian following him. When he moves the curtain aside, he finds Qiao Yi sitting there without clothes. Ji Chen says to Qiao Yi, "Well, you can't just sit here hiding your face. What's done is done. Here's a towel, come on out." When the three are sitting together, Qiao Yi says, "I had promised that I'd write every word of my book myself, but what could I do? I just couldn't find any words in my mind." Qiao Yi then starts explaining, "When I wrote my first books and then began writing this one, I had absolutely nothing to write. Lucy told me about a book and mentioned that we'd bought the copyright, so I used some of the ideas she suggested in my book. How was I supposed to know it would turn into such a huge issue?" Then the two start thinking about how to get him out of there. Zhou Tian spots a bag lying in one corner and says, "I have an idea." They both put him in a bag and start carrying him out. When they reach the car, Ji Chen struggles to lift the bag, and Zhou Tian lifts it by herself and places it in the trunk. Then they take him somewhere. As soon as he gets out of the bag and sits on the sofa, looking to the other side, he sees a young man sitting there. The scene shifts to Zhou Tian and Ji Chen in the car. They are driving, but the car breaks down along the way. Ji Chen steps out and starts examining the car. Seeing that the car is completely broken down, Zhou Tian starts preparing herself to run away. Ji Chen sees her and asks, "What are you doing?" Zhou Tian replies, "You yourself said I should leave, so I'm going. 10 kilometers is nothing for me. I'll run out of here in a second." Saying this, she dashes off. Ji Chen is furious after she leaves him behind, thinking, "She just left me alone." But a little while later, he sees Zhou Tian coming back with a car for help, and he's left staring. Zhou Tian says, "How did it feel? Didn't you feel even a bit scared staying here alone? Or did you think I might not come back?" Ji Chen did feel that way, but replies, "No, I had already decided to fire you." Hearing this, Zhou Tian falls silent and says, "No, I love my job, so I brought help just for you." In the next scene, Zhou Tian returns home, first meeting Chu Chu, and then starts chatting with Ji Chen on her phone. Ji Chen asks, "Did you just get back from work?" She says, "Yes." Ji Chen then asks, "Is Chu Chu home?" She replies, "Yes, she's here." They continue chatting for a while. After finishing his chat with Zhou Tian, Ji Chen receives a call from Kevin. Kevin says, "I read some comments and such under the ceremony's post. Most people are supporting Qiao Yi." In the next scene, Ji Chen meets some people. Zhou Tian secretly listens to their conversation. After they leave, Zhou Tian stands there, hiding her face. Ji Chen notices her hiding and heads back inside. Zhou Tian goes to her friend and tells her, "These people are trying to get Qiao Yi out of here. They're starting to see him as a burden." Her friend says, "It's not even Qiao Yi's fault. He's been framed." In the next scene, a man calls Lucy and informs her, "Qiao Yi will be with you soon, because if Ji Chen doesn't get him out of there, he'll have to suffer major losses." Hearing this, Lucy is pleased, while Zhou Tian, who is sitting with her friend and an employee, is thinking about how to prove Qiao Yi's innocence. Just then, Ji Chen arrives. Ji Chen says, "You all don't need to get involved in this matter." Ji Chen tells Zhou Tian, "If you interfere in this case, I'll fire you." Hearing this, Zhou Tian zips her lips and says, "I won't say anything." Then Zhou Tian goes to meet a man and says, "You're Lucy's husband, right?" Then she says, "All right, I understand you're behind all of this. You're the one who signed the documents for Lucy, aren't you?" The man apologizes and says, "Yes, it was a mistake. I did sign them, and I also know that you want to help Qiao Yi." Zhou Tian says, "Yes, and you're going to help me. If you don't, your relationship might end. I'll go tell your wife everything." In this way, Zhou Tian starts threatening him. Then we see Ji Chen going to meet Qiao Yi. He says, "I've prepared a speech for you, and tomorrow we need to explain ourselves." The next morning, Zhou Tian arrives at the office and goes to see Ji Chen. She says, "I want to help you," but Ji Chen refuses her. Next, Zhou Tian meets Ji Chen and hands in her resignation letter. She says, "I'm resigning because nobody here gets justice. Instead, even the innocent are dismissed. Now you can't fire me, and I'm going to prove Qiao Yi's innocence." Then, Qiao Yi and Ji Chen are both at a conference. During the conference, Zhou Tian brings in a man and starts saying, "I'm here to prove her innocence." The man starts explaining, "My wife and I grew up together. We know where she kept that thing. Once, my wife launched a short story from her book. Somehow, Lucy tracked us down and said, 'I need the copyright of your book.' After some time, Lucy found my wife again, gave her some money, and told her, 'With this copyright, we're going to frame Qiao Yi,' and she paid her to leave the place." The man then apologizes to Qiao Yi, and the reporters sitting there say, "Oh, so that's what happened. We need evidence to believe this." Zhou Tian asks him, "Did you bring the agreement with you?" He replies, "No, I looked everywhere but couldn't find it." As the issue escalates, Ji Chen says, "I have evidence." He shows a video of the same writer, who explains clearly, "Lucy came to me and paid me to do all this. I value my career more than money, so I'm here telling the truth today." Lucy framed Qiao Yi. Seeing this, Zhou Tian feels troubled, thinking, "I misunderstood Ji Chen so badly, but he really wanted to help." After the conference ends, Zhou Tian goes to Ji Chen and says, "I don't want to leave this company now. Can you give me back my resignation letter?" Ji Chen replies, "Since you're so sincere, I'll think about it." Saying this, he walks away. When Zhou Tian gets home, she talks to her Chu-Chu and chats online with her friend 1003, who is actually Ji Chen. They share details about their day's work. Then Zhou Tian shares a noodle recipe with Ji Chen. He makes it, and while eating, he receives a picture of a girl. Seeing it, Ji Chen says, "Finally, I've found you." In the next scene, we see Ji Nian working at Zhou Tian's friend Zhang Hao's restaurant. She looks out the window and sees Ji Chen approaching. Since Ji Chen is actually her brother, she quickly hides. Ji Chen arrives, searches for her in the restaurant but doesn't find her, and leaves. In the next scene, Zhou Tian tells her friend, "Ji Chen is definitely going to fire me now. How will I stay in the company?" Then she heads to Ji Chen's office. When she sees he's not there, Zhou Tian starts practicing her apology, but Zhou Tian doesn't realize there's a camera in the room and Ji Chen is watching her through it. When Ji Chen enters the office, he asks, "What are you doing here?" Zhou Tian looks at him and says, "I was cleaning here. It had gotten quite dusty." Ji Chen replies, "You could have called a cleaner for this." Hearing this, Zhou Tian quickly grabs Ji Chen's hand and starts apologizing, but Ji Chen doesn't accept, so Zhou Tian angrily tries to leave. Just then, Kai Wei comes in with Zhou Tian's new contract. Seeing it, Zhou Tian apologizes to Ji Chen again, but Ji Chen throws her card in the trash. Seeing this, Zhou Tian becomes very sad. Then Ji Chen says, "Go, pick up your new card." Hearing this, Zhou Tian gets very happy. Then Kai Wei comes in and shares some company news. Zhou Tian asks about it, but Ji Chen tells her, "You should stay out of this," and throws the file into the trash. Seeing this, Zhou Tian quickly leaves to do her work. In the next scene, Ji Chen and Zhou Tian's friend Zhang Hao are negotiating a sports contract. Zhou Tian also arrives there and, upon seeing Ji Chen, gets very nervous. Zhou Tian brings a drink for Zhang Hao and gives it to him, but she hasn't brought one for Ji Chen. So she tries to give her drink to Ji Chen, but he refuses. Then Zhou Tian drinks Zhang Hao's drink, but Ji Chen throws it down and says, "It has bacteria. How can you drink this?" Zhou Tian and Zhang Hao look at Ji Chen. Then Ji Chen and Zhou Tian start walking around the place. Ji-Chen goes into a room to look at trophies and sees Zhou Tian standing in a picture there. He asks her, "Did you give up sports because of your foot injury?" Zhou Tian nods, and Ji-Chen starts looking at her foot. Zhou Tian, trying to hide her foot, steps back and starts to fall, but Ji-Chen catches her. They look at each other, and just then, Zhang Hao arrives and pulls Zhou Tian toward him after seeing them like that. Zhou Tian explains, "You're misunderstanding. I was about to fall, and Ji-Chen caught me." In the next scene, Ji-Chen goes to meet Jin Yan at the restaurant. Ji-Chen asks her, "Why are you working here? You went abroad to study, so why did you come back?" Jin Yan says, "Why? Can't I live my life the way I want? I'm over 18 now and want to be independent." Her brother Ji-Chen starts lecturing her, saying, "The guy you like, I don't like him at all. You have terrible taste." Jin Yan replies, "How do you know if my taste is good or not?" Then, after a long argument, Jin Yan leaves. Ji-Chen goes home, feeling sad, and then starts chatting with Zhou Tian online. They talk for a long time again. The next day, Ji-Chen goes to meet Jin Yan again and tells her, "I've thought a lot about what you said, so now I want you to prove yourself," and takes her card as well. Jin Yan says, "Do you think I can't prove myself?" "I can." Just then, Zhou Tian arrives. Jin Yan tells Ji-Chen, "Don't tell her about our relationship." Ji-Chen says, "Okay." Then Zhou Tian comes over and asks Ji-Chen, "If you don't get the video edited, what will you do?" Ji-Chen replies, "Then I'll fire that person." Hearing this, Zhou Tian quickly runs off to complete her task. When Ji-Chen comes to the company later, he sees Zhou Tian watching her sports video. Then Ji-Chen calls Kai Wei and says, "I want to transfer Zhou Tian to a new job for 3 months for training." At first, Kai Wei is shocked, but then he replies, "All right." Later, Ji-Chen returns home and finds that Chu-Chu is already waiting there. He notices a candy around her neck, takes it off, and starts talking to Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian says, "This is my favorite candy. Did you like it?" At first, Ji-Chen says, "I don't eat candy," but Zhou Tian insists, "You must try this candy." In the next scene, Ji-Chen goes to a shop to buy the candy. There, a girl annoys him so much that he finally sneaks away. In the following scene, Ji-Chen is watching a sports video of Zhou Tian, while Zhou Tian, after returning home, starts chatting with her online friend 1003. They both say, "We should meet now." Zhou Tian suggests a restaurant and gives a time, saying, "We'll meet in the morning." Zhou Tian arrives first, takes out her cat, and starts playing, but the cat runs away from her. Ji-Chen enters and first notices Chu-Chu with an elderly woman, thinking, "This must be her cat." Just then, Zhou Tian calls out from behind, "That's my cat!" When he sees Zhou Tian, he leaves immediately. Outside, Ji-Chen thinks, "If I had known this cat was hers, I'd have never come to meet her." He sends her a message saying, "Something came up, so I won't be able to make it." Then he thinks, "I shouldn't lie. She's waiting for me, so I should go meet her." Meanwhile, a handsome young man approaches Zhou Tian, making her think, maybe that's him, but he turns in a different direction halfway, and just then Ji-Chen arrives, shocking Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian asks, "What are you doing here?" He replies, "I came here for a meeting." Zhou Tian doesn't allow him to sit with her and says, "My friend is supposed to sit here." Ji-Chen responds, "There's a vacant seat next to you. He can sit there when he arrives." Zhou Tian begins to get annoyed as Ji-Chen says, "Why hasn't your friend arrived yet?" Zhou Tian says, "He's probably busy but should be on his way." Then Ji-Chen, while waiting, messages her, "I won't be able to make it today." When Zhou Tian reads this message, she takes her cat Chu-Chu and leaves. At home, she waits for his message, wondering, why isn't he replying? Why isn't he messaging me back? Finally, when Ji-Chen comes online, he says, "I got busy and left my phone at home." Later in the office, a cake arrives for Zhou Tian. When Ji-Chen asks whose cake it is, Zhou Tian's friend explains, "It's for Zhou Tian. Today's her birthday." Ji-Chen tells them Zhou Tian has stepped out for some work. You all can share the cake. Back in his office, Ji-Chen thinks he should wish Zhou Tian a happy birthday. Just then, Zhou Tian messages him saying it looks like her whole birthday will pass by in work. Ji-Chen then wishes her a happy birthday. He asks her, "Do you like birthday cake?" She replies, "No, I only like to eat the noodles my dad makes on my birthday." Ji-Chen goes to her workplace to meet her. While everyone is having lunch, Ji-Chen goes to the kitchen and personally makes noodles for Zhou Tian. Then he asks the waiter to give the noodles to her. When the waiter brings the noodles to Zhou Tian, she wonders who arranged this. Looking around, she realizes it's a birthday surprise. Thinking Qiao Yi arranged it, she thanks him and gives him a hug. While she's eating the noodles, Ji-Chen watches her from afar, feeling happy. As they leave, Zhou Tian goes with her friend Zhang Hao, which makes Ji-chen feel very upset and angry. Then they go to a club and enjoy Zhou Tian's birthday party. Later, when Ji-chen returns to the office, he sees people talking while looking at photos of Zhang Hao and Zhou Tian. Ji-chen worries that Zhang Hao might propose to her, so he starts calling and messaging her repeatedly. When Ji-chen finds out that all of Zhou Tian's friends are there, he thinks Zhang Hao won't propose in front of her friends. The next day, Zhou Tian arrives at the office and finds everyone sleeping. She wakes her friend and asks, "Were you all working overtime last night?" Her friend replies, "Yes, we were." She also mentions that Ji-chen is also in the office. Zhou Tian goes to Ji-chen, wakes him up and says, "Why didn't you tell me about the overtime?" Ji-chen replies, "If you're here, you don't do much work anyway, so I didn't inform you." Elsewhere, Zhang Hao is thinking about how to propose to Zhou Tian. He asks Jinian, "My friend likes a girl but doesn't know how to propose. Any ideas?" Jinian suggests a way, making Zhang Hao very happy. Then Ji-chen, Zhou Tian, Zhang Hao, and Qiao Yi all head out together for work. There, Zhou Tian and Zhang Hao are wearing matching outfits. Qiao Yi notices this and says, "You two are dressed alike, you look like a couple." Zhou Tian replies, "No, this is just our school uniform." Then Zhou Tian suggests, "I'll go with Zhang Hao and Ji-chen and Qiao Yi can go together." But Ji-chen doesn't want Zhou Tian to go with Zhang Hao, so he says, No, Zhang Hao and Qiao Yi will go together and you'll come with me." When they reach their destination, Zhou Tian says, "I'll stay in the upstairs room." Ji-chen and Zhang Hao both say, "We'll also stay in the upstairs room." Zhou Tian says, "Fine, you all stay upstairs. I'll stay in the downstairs room." Before the training, there's a test that involves a needle. Upon seeing it, Ji-chen faints. When he wakes up, Zhou Tian says, "I didn't know you were afraid of needles." And Ji-chen replies, "It's nothing." Later, Zhang Hao and Zhou Tian go near a tree to measure their heights. Ji-chen watches this from above, feeling jealous. He also goes near the tree to measure his height. Zhou Tian and Zhang Hao notice him and ask, "What are you doing here?" He replies, "Nothing, just looking at the tree." The next day, as everyone is running, Zhang Hao and Zhou Tian are at the front, while Ji-chen and Qiao Yi are running behind. Ji-chen doesn't like Zhou Tian and Zhang Hao being together at all. Then, Zhou Tian stops to ask for water. Ji-chen and Zhang Hao both offer her water, and Zhou Tian takes Zhang Hao's water. Then they realize Qiao Yi isn't with them. The three of them set out to look for him. Ji-chen says, "Zhou Tian, come with me because I'm new here and don't know the way." They start searching for Qiao Yi. Suddenly, Zhou Tian spots Qiao Yi's cap and starts walking towards it, but she trips, and Ji-chen catches her. They continue looking for Qiao Yi, and it starts to rain. Ji-chen and Zhou Tian stand under a tree. Ji-chen notices rainwater is soaking Zhou Tian's clothes, so he takes off his jacket and places it over her. They gaze at each other. Just then, Zhou Tian receives a call. She picks it up and says, "Qiao Yi has been found." After the rain stops, they start walking back. But when Zhou Tian struggles to walk, Ji-chen picks her up to carry her. Zhou Tian says, "No, I can walk," and they both continue on their way. Back at home, Ji-chen gets angry at Qiao Yi, saying, "Couldn't you stay with us? Because of you, Zhou Tian got hurt." Then he lifts Zhou Tian's foot and examines it. Just then, Qiao Yi asks, "Is something going on between you two?" Ji-chen replies, "No." Then both of them go to their rooms. In their rooms, they think about each other, and then both start messaging each other on 1003. In the next scene, Ji-chen overhears Zhang Hao talking to someone saying, "Today, I'm going to take Zhou Tian to the beach and confess my love." Hearing this, Ji-chen thinks, "Now I must stop Zhou Tian from going there at any cost." Meanwhile, Jinian arrives with a package for Zhang Hao. She goes to the beach with Zhang Hao and all the supplies. Then she asks Zhang Hao, "What's all this for?" Zhang Hao says, "Today, I'm going to confess my love to Zhou Tian." Hearing this, Jinian becomes very upset. At this moment, Ji-chen calls her and asks, "What's going on?" Jinian tells him, Zhang Hao is going to confess his love to Zhou Tian today. Ji-chen becomes very worried. Later at night, Zhang Hao and Zhou Tian are heading to the beach with Ji-chen following them. Jinian then comes to Ji-chen and asks, "Do you really like Zhou Tian?" Ji-chen replies, "Yes." Jinian says, "Let's go and listen to what they're talking about." On the other side, Zhang Hao proposes to Zhou Tian. Zhou Tian says, "I think of you as my brother. I can never make you my boyfriend." Hearing this, Jinian tells Ji-chen, "Now you've got another chance." After this, they all return home. When Zhou Tian gets home, she sees that Chu-Chu is not there. She immediately messages Ji-chen, asking, "Is Chu-Chu with you?" Ji-chen replies, yes, and then they start talking. In the next scene, when Jo Tian arrives at the office, she learns that Ji-chen has promoted her. Kai Wei informs Jo Tian, who gets very upset because Ji-chen promoted Jo Tian but not him. Ji-chen deliberately places Jo Tian's desk in front of him. When Jo Tian sits at her desk, Ji-chen watches her. Noticing this, Jo Tian places something in front of her so Ji-chen can't see her. Ji-chen then calls a worker and has the side of her desk changed. When Jo Tian realizes Ji-chen might be trying to look at her, she places a plant in front of herself. Ji-chen then gets up, sits on the sofa, and starts working, still keeping his gaze on Jo Tian. Jo Tian approaches Ji-chen and says, "Can't you work at your chair? Why are you sitting here on the sofa?" Ji-chen then goes to sit in his chair, and Jo Tian sits in front of him. Ji-chen assigns her a lot of work, so Jo Tian quietly starts doing it. After finishing, she brings the work to Ji-chen and says, "I've completed all the tasks." Afterward, she sits back down, and then Kai Wei comes in and gives her even more work. She takes it to Ji-chen and says, "I can't do so much work." Ji-chen replies, "No worries, just do a bit every day." Jo Tian gets angry but says, "Fine, I'll do it." Meanwhile, Zhang Hao is sitting there feeling very down. Ji-chen then calls Kai Wei and says, "I want to take Jo Tian out for dinner, so bring some food for her." While all the workers are still working, Jo Tian tells them, "You all can leave. Your shift is over." Ji-chen also tells them, "You all can go, your shift is over." Jo Tian says, "All right, if you all don't go, then I'll leave." To which Ji-chen replies, "No, you can't leave." Then Kai Wei arrives with the food and says, "I only brought food for Jo Tian." Ji-chen responds, "No, I was treating everyone and you brought so little food." Then Ji-chen distributes the food into small portions for everyone. In the next scene, Jo Tian is giving a promotion party to her friends, and Ji-chen shows up and stands behind her. Jo Tian is bad-mouthing him, and her friends try to stop her, but she doesn't listen. When she turns around, she is shocked to see Ji-chen. Ji-chen then sits with them. Afterward, they play a game in which Ji-chen is losing, so he has to drink. Ji-chen drinks a lot. Then, when he wins once, he has to kiss Jo Tian. Just as he's about to kiss her, he falls asleep on her shoulder. Then everyone leaves Ji-chen with Jo Tian and goes away. Jo Tian somehow manages to get Ji-chen home in a taxi. He's very drunk, and he thanks her as he gets close to her. Jo Tian pushes him back and then thinks, "He's so drunk. Maybe I can get him to do what I want." She writes on a paper saying that Ji-chen is sending her to sports and tries to get his signature, but Ji-chen refuses to sign. Jo Tian then brings ink and asks him to use his finger, but Ji-chen smears the ink on his lips instead. And then he presses his lips against the paper. Jo Tian then leaves. Afterward, Ji-chen wakes up again and messages Jo Tian saying, "I like you." When Jo Tian reads this message, she wonders why her online friend is sending her an "I like you" message. The next morning, when Ji-chen sees the message, he realizes, "I sent Jo Tian an "I like you" message." So he quickly sends her another message saying, "I meant that message for your cat, not for you." Due to internet issues, only half the message got sent. Then he adds, "I'm going somewhere for a few days, so please keep Choo Choo with you." Jo Tian tells him, "Just leave her at the pet shop and I'll pick her up from there." In the next scene, while Jo Tian is on her way to pick up Choo Choo from the pet shop, she sees Kai Wei dropping her off. Seeing this, Jo Tian feels quite strange. She wonders if it's really Kai Wei who's been looking after Choo Choo. When she arrives at the office, Ji-chen asks her, "What happened last night?" Jo Tian thinks he doesn't remember anything. Then she says to him, "You promised me you'd transfer me to the sports department." Ji-chen replies, "I don't recall saying anything like that. Do you have any proof?" Then Jo Tian shows him the paper where he left his lip mark and says, "Look at this. You left your lip mark on it." Ji-chen replies, "These aren't my lips." Jo Tian insists, "No, they are definitely yours." She then pulls out her lipstick, hands it to Ji-chen and says, "If you want, try making the mark again to see for yourself that these are your lips." Just as Ji-chen is about to apply the lipstick, Kai Wei arrives. Jo Tian and Ji-chen make an excuse and leave. Then Jo Tian tells her friend, "I think the one who takes care of my Choo Choo is none other than Kai Wen." Just then, Kai Wen appears, and Jo Tian's friend asks him, "Do you like cats?" Kai Wen says, "Oh no, I don't like cats at all." Then she points out, "There's cat hair on your coat." Kai Wen replies, "Yes, this particular cat is very special." Saying this, he leaves. Jo Tian suspects that the person Choo Choo keeps going to is actually Kai Wen. Later, Jo Tian and Ji-chen go to a place for a meeting. There, Ji-chen gets a call and steps outside to answer it. In the meantime, Jo Tian has a drink. When Ji-chen returns, he picks her up and takes her to a hotel. Once they arrive, Ji-chen sits her down on the sofa, and Jo Tian asks, "Are you planning to do something wrong with me?" Then she starts hitting him, so Ji-chen picks her up and lays her on the bed. In response, She pulls Ji-Chen onto the bed beside her. Jo Tian, mistaking Ji-Chen for her cat, says, "I figured out who you keep going to. It's Kai Wen, isn't it?" Ji-Chen answers, "Yes, it's Kai Wen." Hearing Kai Wen's name, Jo Tian gets angry and starts taking off her clothes, saying, "It's so hot in here." Ji-Chen tells her to stop undressing, but Jo Tian starts dancing and says, "Look how cute I am." Ji-Chen walks over to her and says, "Yes, you really are very cute." Then she gets Ji-Chen to dance with her. After dancing for a while, she gets tired and sits on the bed, talking bad about him. Then she rests her head on Ji-Chen's shoulder and falls asleep. Ji-Chen gently lays her down and leaves. The next morning, when Jo Tian wakes up, she looks around and wonders, what happened between me and Ji-Chen last night? After that, she goes to the office and talks to her friend, who asks, "Were you both in the hotel room last night? It's hard to believe that nothing happened between you two. Tell me what happened." She replies, "Nothing happened." Just then, Kai Wen tells them, "Stop chatting and get back to work." Ji-Chen sends a message to Jo Tian, and upon seeing the message, Jo Tian gets suspicious. She thinks, if Kai Wen was standing here when I received this message, then who sent it? She then says, "I need to find out if it's really Kai Wen or someone else." Later, Jo Tian catches Ji-Chen using his phone, making her suspicious of him. She messages him. Jo Tian says, "I want to meet you." Ji-Chen replies, "I'm busy." She asks him, "Can you meet me soon?" Ji-Chen agrees to meet after a few days, but Jo Tian remains suspicious. So she goes to Ji-Chen's office and calls him from her mobile, trying to confirm if it's really him. However, her plan fails. She thinks, how will I find out if it's Ji-Chen? A while later, when Ji-Chen comes out of his office, he sees that Jo Tian is not there. When he inquires, he finds out that Jo Tian went to meet the guard to learn more about Ji-Chen. Ji-Chen worries that the guard might reveal something, so he rushes over to stop him. When Jo Tian arrives, she shows the guard a photo of Ji-Chen and says, "He's the one who returned my cat to me." The guard can't recognize him, but then Ji-Chen arrives. When Ji-Chen shows up, Jo Tian tells the guard, "Look closely and recognize him." The guard is still unable to identify him. Then Jo Tian asks Ji-Chen, "Why did you come here?" Ji-Chen says, "I needed to get some files from the car. I was passing by, saw you, and came over." Jo Tian replies, "Today this guard saved you, but you won't be saved next time." Then Jo Tian devises a new plan, sending Chu-Chu to Ji-Chen's house and following her there. When Ji-Chen opens the door, Jo Tian says, "I need something." Ji-Chen responds, "I don't handle work at home." Jo Tian enters his house and starts looking for Chu-Chu. At that moment, Ji-Chen spots Chu-Chu outside the window and scares her off. Jo Tian searches the whole house but can't find Chu-Chu. When she approaches the window, Ji-Chen sees Chu-Chu outside. He grabs Jo Tian and moves her aside. Angry, Jo Tian storms out. Ji-Chen follows her outside. Just then, Jo Tian spots Chu-Chu and becomes furious with Ji-Chen. Jo Tian says, "So you're the one who was taking care of Chu-Chu. You did all this on purpose. I was bad-mouthing you for so many days and you kept quiet, gave me extra work in the office. You've been doing this all intentionally." Then, upset, she leaves. Ji-Chen follows her in his car and stops at a place trying to explain things to her. Jo Tian doesn't listen to him at all, so he says to her, "I didn't know Chu-Chu was your cat before. That's why I gave you more work. But when I found out, and you weren't doing any work properly in the office, even then I didn't say anything to you." Jo Tian responds, "Fine. If you have such a problem with me, then fire me." In the next scene, Ji-Chen goes to the place where he was going to propose to Jo Tian and feels quite sad. Jo Tian goes to her friend and tells her about Ji-Chen. Meanwhile, Ji-Chen is sitting in Ji Nian's restaurant drinking. Ji Nian, standing nearby, thinks, "What's wrong with him?" She then goes to him and asks, "What's wrong with you?" Ji-Chen starts sharing everything on his mind with Ji Nian, while on the other hand, Jo Tian is telling her friend everything as well. The next day, when Jo Tian goes to a restaurant, Ji Nian gives her a gift and says, "Someone left this for you." When she opens the gift, it's a crocodile toy. Ji Nian asks, "What is this?" Jo Tian says, "Someone gave it to me to apologize, but I won't forgive him," and she walks away. When she goes to the office, Ji-Chen has written a letter for her, which has a picture of a crocodile. Jo Tian tears up the picture and injects the crocodile toy in the stomach, which immediately makes Ji-Chen feel something. Then, she throws the crocodile at him, and Ji-Chen leaves the place feeling sad. Later, Jo Tian learns that her parents are coming to fix her marriage with Zhang Hao. Jo Tian thinks, "I'll need to find a fake boyfriend to show my parents so they don't force me to marry Zhang Hao." She wonders, who should I make my fake boyfriend? Then, Jo Tian goes to a coffee shop, and Ji-Chen follows her there. Jo Tian tells her friend, "I've decided who I'll make my fake boyfriend." Ji-Chen overhears this and feels happy, thinking that Jo Tian will make him her fake boyfriend. She goes to the office and says to Ji-chen, I need a 3-day leave. Ji-chen readily agrees to give her the leave, and Zhou Tian happily leaves the place. Ji-chen then thinks, why didn't she ask me to be her fake boyfriend? Zhou Tian then goes to her friend's restaurant where she talks about her plan to get a fake boyfriend, and her friend Xin agrees. They then take pictures in various locations. When Zhou Tian and her friend look at the photos, Zhou Tian notices Ji-chen in them and thinks, Ji-chen is following me. Later, Zhou Tian and Xin go to a park, where Zhou Tian feels sad. She senses that Ji-chen might be around and thinks, he's probably here too. Ji-chen is indeed there. Then Ji-chen, dressed in a crocodile costume, comes to the park to tease them. Zhou Tian gets angry and starts hitting Ji-chen, saying, why are you bothering me? I'm just an ordinary girl. You can get any girlfriend. Why are you bothering me? After this, she leaves. Hearing this, Ji-chen feels sad and also leaves. In the next scene, both Zhou Tian's family and Zhang Hao's family arrive, and Zhou Tian is there as well. Everyone is discussing Zhou Tian and Zhang Hao's marriage. Just then, Ji-chen arrives, introduces himself, and says, I'm Zhou Tian's boyfriend. This shocks everyone in the family. Zhou Tian asks Ji-chen, where's Xin? Ji-chen replies, I sent him away. He won't come. Now I'm your boyfriend, and I'll help you. Zhou Tian says, I don't need your help. Ji-chen replies, fine, I'll leave. As he starts to go, Zhou Tian stops him and says, no, I need your help now. Then Zhou Tian tells everyone, this is my boyfriend. Hearing this, the family members get angry and start leaving. As everyone is leaving, Zhang Hao and Jinian also arrive. Zhang Hao then tells everyone, this is my girlfriend, which makes Ji-chen furious. He asks Jinian, is he your boyfriend? Jinian responds, yes, he's my boyfriend. This makes Ji-chen even angrier, and he starts arguing with Jinian. A fight breaks out between them. Their family members ask, why are you two fighting? Jinian says, he's my brother, and he always orders me around. That's why I left home, and now I'm trying to make my own identity. As everyone is leaving, Zhang Hao's father shows off his car to Zhou Tian's father, trying to annoy him. But then Ji-chen arrives with his car to offer Zhou Tian's parents a ride. Impressed by his car, Zhou Tian's parents feel pleased. Ji-chen takes them to his home and invites them to sit. Seeing Ji-chen's house, Zhou Tian's parents feel very happy. Zhou Tian's dad then goes off to look around the house, while her mom sits there. Ji-chen and Zhou Tian act like a couple in front of her mom. Then Zhou Tian says, I'll go get dad, and we'll go home. When Zhou Tian goes to get her dad, she sees him talking to Zhang Hao's dad online, telling him everything about Ji-chen's possessions. Then Zhou Tian says, shall we go home now? Ji-chen also arrives and says, if you want, you can stay here. Zhou Tian's dad responds, how can we stay here? Ji-chen says, it's okay. You can stay as long as you like. Hearing this, Zhou Tian's dad says, all right. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao's parents tell him that Jinian isn't a good girl. She has a lot of attitude. Zhang Hao replies, she studied abroad. Maybe that's why she's like this, but she's genuinely a good person at heart. Zhang Hao also tells his parents, I proposed to Zhou Tian, but she rejected me. On the other side, Zhou Tian's parents are thinking, Ji-chen is a very good guy, and he'll always keep Zhou Tian happy. They also think, Ji-chen invited us to stay here, so if we don't, he'll feel bad. Just then, Zhou Tian arrives and says, no, you all can't stay here. Her parents reply, if we don't stay, Ji-chen will feel bad. Zhou Tian says, fine, you all stay here, I'm leaving. And she starts to leave. When Zhou Tian is about to leave, her parents are speaking to Ji-chen from behind, saying, we'll sleep on the upper floor. Zhou Tian overhears them and comes back. She says, all right, I'll stay too. Then, Zhou Tian's dad asks about a game. Zhou Tian responds, how could he have that game? Ji-chen replies, no, I have it. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao goes to meet Jinian and says, I got worried about you, so I came to see you. Jinian replies, were you really worried about me? On the other hand, Kai Wei arrives at Ji-chen's house and knocks on the door. Zhou Tian opens it, and Kai Wei asks, what are you doing here? Ji-chen arrives and asks Kai Wei, did you bring that game? Kai Wei says, yes, I brought it, and takes the game inside. In the next scene, everyone is playing the game, but Ji-chen doesn't know how to play. The others play quickly, but Ji-chen seems clueless about how to play. Then Zhou Tian's parents start helping him. Zhou Tian tells them, you can't do that. Then Zhou Tian's mom says, we really like Ji-chen a lot. Zhou Tian responds, how could you like him? He doesn't even have good health. He takes medicine. Her mom goes to check out Ji-chen's medicine, and upon seeing it, she's even more impressed, saying, I take this medicine too. Ji-chen's medicine is from a really good company. In the next scene, Ji-chen orders many gifts for Jo-tien's parents. When they see the gifts, they say, "How can we take all these?" Ji-chen replies, "Don't worry, you don't need to take them. I'll send them to you by post." Then he tells Kai-wei, "Send these gifts to their home by post." Jo-tien tells her mom, Ji-chen always sits on his massage chair. Then Jo-tien's dad goes to see the massage chair and sits on it. He says to Ji-chen, "The chair I have isn't as nice as this one. Your chair is very good." Ji-chen responds, "Don't worry, I'll send you one like this." Seeing all this, Jo-tien becomes very angry and tells her parents, "If you want to stay here, go ahead. I'm leaving." She starts to go, and when she reaches the door, she hears her parents fixing her wedding date. She quickly steps on Kai-wei's foot and rushes back inside. When she goes in, she says, "You can't do this." Jo-tien's mom says, "You were about to leave." Jo-tien replies, "I've changed my mind, now I'm not going anywhere, and I'll stay here." In the next scene, Ji-chen goes to Jo-tien's room to talk to her, but she doesn't respond. Ji-chen says, "I want to talk to you," but Jo-tien replies, "I don't want to talk to you. Leave." Ji-chen grabs her, and they come very close to each other. Just then, Jo-tien's mom enters and sees them like that. She says while leaving, "The lights are off and I can't see anything." After her mom leaves, Jo-tien pushes Ji-chen back and says, "Leave the room. We'll talk in the morning." In the morning, while Jo-tien is sleeping, there's a loud noise outside. She wakes up, goes out, and sees Ji-chen exercising with her parents. Jo-tien's dad says, "The exercise Ji-chen showed us is good for our health. Now that you're up, you should exercise too." In the next scene, Jo-tien's dad is preparing breakfast for everyone, and Ji-chen is standing nearby. Jo-tien's dad says, "Jo-tien loves rice balls, so I always make rice balls for her." Then Ji-chen makes rice balls for Jo-tien, shaping them like a cat. At the breakfast table, Jo-tien's mom asks, "What is this?" Ji-chen replies, "It's Choo-Choo." Just then, the doorbell rings, and Jo-tien opens the door to see Kai-wei, who says, "I've arranged a car for them." In the next scene, Jo-tien's and Jung-hao's parents leave. After they leave, Jo-tien stands facing away. Ji-chen comes over and stands in front of her. Jo-tien says, "I'll soon pay you back for the gifts you gave my parents." Ji-chen replies, "I gave the gifts by choice." Jo-tien says, "Just because you gave my parents gifts doesn't mean I'm saying yes to you." Then Ji-chen says to Jung-hao, "I need to talk to you about something," and starts to walk him away. Ji-nien says, "What do you need to talk to him about? Whatever it is, say it here in front of me." Ji-chen responds, "This is a private matter between guys. I can't say it in front of you," and he starts to pull Jung-hao away. Ji-nien on the other side grabs Jung-hao's hand to stop him. Both of them start pulling Jung-hao in different directions. During this, Jung-hao falls down and injures his leg. Then they take Jung-hao to the hospital. The doctor examines him and says that he's not badly hurt and just needs some rest. He'll be fine soon. Ji-nien says, "This is all because of you." Jung-hao says, "It's okay, I'm fine." Jung-hao then says, "You both probably need to go to the office. You go." Ji-nien replies, "No, I'll stay here with you." Jo-tien and Ji-chen head to the office. Upon arriving, Jo-tien notices a cup on her table. She sees that Ji-chen also has a similar cup. Just then, Kai-wei comes over and says, "Ji-chen really likes this tea, so I thought you'd like it too, so I brought it for you." Then Kai-wei says, "I don't know what Ji-chen sees in you. You're not even beautiful, yet he likes you." Then he walks away. Just then, Ji-chen sends her a message saying, "Would you like to have dinner with me?" When Jo-tien reads the message, she says, "I'm not going to dinner with him," and deletes the message. After waiting for a long time, Ji-chen wonders, why hasn't she replied yet? Then he sends another message and realizes that Jo-tien have removed him from WeChat. Then Ji-chen messages her from a different ID. When Jo-tien sees the message, she thinks, "How did I forget this ID?" Then she tries to remove it as well, but then thinks, "No, I shouldn't remove this ID. I need to work in the office and I can't remove this ID." She replies, "This is work time. We should focus on work." In the next scene, Ji-chen tells Kai-wei, "I'll drive the car." Kai-wei replies, "All right." Then Kai-wei sits in the front seat. When Ji-chen enters the car, he tells Kai-wei, "I'm driving myself. Why do you need to sit here?" So Kai-wei gets out of the car and says, "I think he'll drive himself, so there's no need for me to come along." Ji-chen takes his car to Jo-tien to offer her a ride, but Jo-tien tells him, "I already booked a taxi." Just then, the taxi arrives, and Jo-tien gets in and leaves. Then Ji-chen arrives at the office and tells Kai-wei, "We should arrange a bus for our employees." Hearing this, Kai-wei replies, "All right." Meanwhile, Jo-tien's friend comes and tells her that a bus has been arranged for them. Hearing this, Jo-tien feels a bit worried and thinks, there must be something behind this. In the next scene, Jung-hao is in the hospital, and Ji-nien is going to get his report. Jung-hao stops her and says, "You look really beautiful today." Ji-nien replies, "Really?" Next, Ji Chen takes the bus he arranged and even goes on it himself. He places a teddy bear on an empty seat. When Zhou Tian boards the bus, she sees that there's no free seat for her, except beside Ji Chen. She says, "I'll run to the office today," and gets off the bus, running away. The next day, Ji Chen comes to her and says, "Come on, let's run to the office together today." Zhou Tian replies, "My friend brought breakfast for me today, so I'll take the bus." Then she leaves Ji Chen and goes to the bus. Later, Ji Chen is riding a bicycle with Kai Wei. Meanwhile, on the bus, people are talking. Ji Chen is chasing after Zhou Tian. Everyone on the bus sees Ji Chen on the bike. Suddenly, Zhou Tian hears that Ji Chen has had an accident. In the next scene, Zhou Tian is at home talking to Chu Chu, saying, "Ji Chen's accident happened because of me. If he hadn't followed me, he wouldn't have had an accident." Then she asks Chu Chu, "What should I do now? Should I do something for Ji Chen?" The next day, Zhou Tian is cooking food for Ji Chen. She takes it to his house, but when she arrives, she sees Ji Chen eating with another girl. She notices that he is very close with that girl. Then Ji Chen goes inside with the girl. Seeing this, Zhou Tian feels very hurt and goes back to her house. In the next scene, Zhou Tian is in the office when Ji Chen arrives, and the same girl is with him. They are talking. Zhou Tian's friend asks Kai Wei, "Who is this girl?" Kai Wei tells her, "She's the president's daughter and Ji Chen's fiancé." Hearing this, Zhou Tian feels very unhappy. In the next scene, everyone is in the meeting room, and the girl introduces herself, saying, "My name is Zhang Han Yi." Then Kai Wen comes in and says, "I'll bring coffee for everyone." Ji Chen tells him, "Bring coffee for Zhang Han Yi too," even mentioning her favorite coffee. Zhou Tian thinks he even knows Zhang Han Yi's favorite coffee. Then Kai Wei asks Zhou Tian, "Would you like some coffee?" Zhou Tian replies, "I don't want coffee." Hearing this, Ji Chen also says, "I don't want coffee either." Then Ji Chen and Zhang Han Yi sit in the office, talking. Zhou Tian watches them and feels very hurt. After a while, Zhang Han Yi leaves. Once she's gone, Ji Chen comes to Zhou Tian and says, "A new cafe has opened downstairs, let's go there." Zhou Tian replies, "I don't want to go." Ji Chen asks, "Are you sick?" Zhou Tian says, "No, I'm perfectly fine." She heads toward the elevator. Ji Chen thinks she's feeling jealous. Then Ji Chen also follows her, and Zhou Tian enters the elevator. She tells him, "Don't come in the elevator with me." Ji Chen stands there watching her. In the next scene, Ji Chen meets Zhang Han Yi again. Ji Chen tells Zhang Han Yi, "Don't get too close to me. Zhou Tian is even more upset with me because of you." Zhang Han Yi replies, "I'm your friend. I'll get closer to you." Ji Chen says, "Stay away from me." In the next scene, Zhou Tian is at home. She thinks those two were so close and how they were talking. She keeps thinking about it and can't sleep. In the next scene, Zhou Tian arrives at the office and sees that a crowd has gathered. The people are saying, "Qiao Yi deceived us. Kick him out." Then Ji Chen arrives and says, "I'm Qiao Yi's agent. Whatever you want to say it to me." Then he takes them to the meeting room. The girl says, "Qiao Yi had a contract with the automobile company, but today they refused to give me the car." Ji Chen checks Qiao Yi's contracts and says, "There's no such contract here." The girl says, "I'll call the police and send Qiao Yi to jail." Ji Chen responds, "We'll also call the police and tell them that you're making false accusations." Then they all leave. After they leave, Zhou Tian also starts to leave. Ji Chen asks her, "Where are you going?" Zhou Tian replies, "I'm going to find Qiao." Ji Chen tells her, "Wait, I'll come with you." They take a lawyer and go to Qiao Yi. Qiao Yi says, "I didn't do anything." So Ji Chen tells him, "Say this to the media too that you didn't do anything." Then Qiao Yi says, "I didn't sign any contract with those people. They're falsely accusing me." In the next scene, Ji Chen and everyone are in the meeting room, discussing finding evidence to save Qiao Yi. They learn that the picture used to frame Qiao Yi was actually taken at a party he attended, and they used it to frame him. Ji Chen says, "We need the original picture." In the next scene, Zhou Tian is working and looking for evidence. She gets tired and falls asleep. When she wakes up, she sees that Ji Chen has brought food for her and she feels very happy. Then she looks back and sees Ji Chen sleeping there. She walks over to him. Ji Chen is asleep. Seeing this, Zhou Tian says, "He looks so cute." Just then, Ji Chen wakes up and says, "What were you doing?" She quickly steps back. Ji Chen comes closer and asks, "Were you trying to kiss me?" She replies, "No, I wasn't doing that." Then Ji Chen asks her, "So, what were you doing?" Zhou Tian asks about Zhang Han Yi, wondering if she's left. Ji Chen says, "Why are you asking about her? Are you getting jealous of her?" She says, "Why would I be jealous? I was just asking because you two come and go together every morning and evening." Ji Chen replies, "She's my friend. After my mom and dad passed away in my childhood, we stayed at her place, and they took very good care of us." Then Ji Chen adds, "Jiang Han Yi is like a sister to me." He also says to Zhou Tian, "We can't start over. I want to say sorry for all my mistakes. Zhou Tian responds, you've taken too long to say sorry. That night, Zhou Tian is again thinking about Jichen, unable to sleep. At that moment, Jichen sends her a friend request. She wonders what she should do, then accepts the request and goes to sleep. The next morning, when Zhou Tian wakes up, she learns that everything has fallen on Jichen, and his job is in jeopardy. Zhou Tian quickly goes to the office and finds out that Jichen is in his room, talking to his boss. They are angry and are firing Jichen from his job. Then Jiang Hanyi steps in and says, if you want to remove Jichen from the CEO position, then give me the CEO position. They reply, you've just returned from abroad and don't understand anything. So, Jiang Hanyi is made CEO, and the news spreads throughout the office that Jichen has been suspended. During a meeting, Jiang Hanyi heads it, and Zhou Tian, feeling very angry, confronts her, asking why Jichen was removed. Jichen tells her, sit down quietly, so she sits down, thinking, I was speaking up for him, and he's telling me to be quiet. Later, Jichen is putting his belongings in a box at the office when Zhou Tian comes over and asks, why were you removed like this? Jichen replies, no problem, just trust me. As they get closer to each other, Jiang Hanyi shows up and says, this office is mine now, that's why I came here. So they both take their things and leave. Then Jichen tells Zhou Tian, now I'll sit at your table. Zhou Tian says, this is my table. Jichen is given another table to the side, and he sits there. Then Qiao Yi comes in and goes straight to Jiang Hanyi's room. He notices that Jichen is not in the room. Jiang Hanyi tells him, Jichen is outside. When Qiao Yi comes outside, he asks Zhou Tian, where is Jichen? Zhou Tian points and says, he's sitting over there. Meanwhile, Jichen is making paper airplanes and throwing them around. Zhou Tian says to him, you're sitting here making paper airplanes. It'd be better if you went home since you don't have any work anyway. Jichen replies, so you want to send me home? Fine, I'll leave. Then he gets up and leaves. In the next scene, Zhou Tian searches for Jichen and arrives at Jinian's restaurant. She asks, where's Jichen? Jinian replies, I don't know. Then Jinian asks, what happened? Zhou Tian explains everything to her. Jinian says, my brother loves his work very much. In the following scene, Zhou Tian goes to a restaurant to have coffee. She places her order, and as she turns, thinking it's Xin Xin, she is shocked to see Jichen there. Everyone else is sitting on the stairs nearby, watching him, saying, Jichen told us he'd sell coffee, so we're here to watch him. Hearing this, Zhou Tian runs away from there and confronts Jiang Hanyi at the office, asking, why did you fire Jichen? He's now selling coffee. Jiang Hanyi listens quietly to all her complaints as Zhou Tian says her piece and leaves. In the next scene, Jiang Hanyi and Jichen are in a meeting with some people. Jiang Hanyi threatens them, you all framed Jichen, so own up to your mistake. If you don't, I'll call the police. Jiang Hanyi then shows them some evidence and says, confess quietly now, so they admit their mistake. Jiang Hanyi says, all right, but I'll still call the police. Just then, Jichen steps up and stands by Jiang Hanyi. The man tries to attack Jiang Hanyi, and Jichen saves her. Jiang Hanyi says, you saved me, you're my hero. Jichen replies, I didn't save you, I saved him. If he got into your hands, you'd break his arms and legs because you've learned karate. Meanwhile, Zhou Tian's friend asks her, hadn't Jichen mentioned it to you before? Zhou Tian replies, maybe he got busy, so he didn't tell me. Just then, Jichen arrives and says, I didn't tell you because there was no mobile signal where I was. Zhou Tian says, it's okay. They look at each other, but just then, Jiang arrives and tells them, this is an office, so keep your distance from each other. In the next scene, Jiang invites Zhou Tian to her home, so Zhou Tian goes to meet her. Jiang says, I can give you a good job, money, everything, just stay away from Jichen. Jiang Hanyi also tells her, I love Jichen, forget him and stay away from him. Zhou Tian replies, no, I love Jichen very much, and I won't give him to anyone. Jichen is only mine. Jiang Hanyi laughs and, who is on a call with Jichen, tells him, see, Zhou Tian just confessed her love. Jichen says to Zhou Tian, I didn't ask her to do this, she did it on her own. Then Jiang says, I came here to explain things to both of you. Jichen replies, leave now, and don't ever look at me again. In the next scene, Qiao Yi is holding a concert, and Jinian is singing with her. Meanwhile, Jichen meets Zhou Tian and tells her, I didn't ask her to do all this, she did it herself. I'm sorry. At first, Zhou Tian doesn't accept his apology, but then she does. Zhou Tian says to Jichen, I wasn't angry with you before, and I'm not angry now. I love you a lot. Then they kiss each other. Just then, Jichen feels unwell and faints. Everyone rushes him to the hospital. Ji Nian, who is at the hospital, is crying heavily and says, "First, my parents passed away due to a heart attack, and now my brother's condition is very bad." Then Ji Chen is brought out of the operating room and admitted to a room. They ask the doctor what happened to him. The doctor says, "He's fine. His reports are normal. You're all just worried for no reason." In the next scene, Ji Nian comes to meet Ji Chen with Zhang Hao, and Zhou Tian arrives with a wheelchair. Ji Nian asks Ji Chen, "Who is this wheelchair for?" The doctor said, "You're perfectly fine." Ji Chen replies, "My parents passed away from a heart attack, so I don't want anything to happen to me." Then Ji Chen tells Ji Nian, "You'll come to my place to take care of me, won't you? I'll rest properly now." Ji Nian says, "No, I can't. I have work to do." Zhou Tian says, "I'll come." Hearing this, Ji Chen is very happy. When Ji Nian sees his happiness, she says, "It's okay, I'll come sometimes." Ji Chen tells her, "You don't need to come. Zhou Tian will take care of it." After Ji Nian leaves, Ji Chen says to Zhou Tian, "I'm feeling unwell again." Zhou Tian tells him, "You should rest." Hearing this, Ji Chen smiles slightly and says, "I'll rest here." He falls asleep on her shoulder. Then Zhou Tian takes Ji Chen home and tells him, "Rest here. I'm going home." Ji Chen asks, "Why are you going home?" She replies, "I don't have clothes here, so I'm going home." Ji Chen tells her, "You don't need to go home for that." Just then, there's a knock on the door. Zhou Tian opens it and Kai Wei is there with a lot of clothes for her. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao is waiting for Ji Nian. Xin goes to him and says, "If you love Ji Nian so much, why don't you propose to her?" Then Ji Nian receives a message from her school saying that the school will reopen next week, so she should come back. Meanwhile, Zhou Tian is taking good care of Ji Chen. She makes food for him, but it gets burnt. When Ji Chen drinks water, she comes to help him and says, "From now on, I'll take good care of you, just like the doctor said." Then she brings healthy food for him and sits in front of him eating chicken. When Ji Chen asks for some chicken, she doesn't give him any and continues eating in front of him. Then when Ji Chen gets ready to leave for the office, she doesn't let him go and says, "You're sick, you should rest." He replies, "I have an important meeting." She says, "It's okay, you can do the meeting online." Then she arranges for Ji Chen to do his online meeting. Afterward, when Zhou Tian is at the office, Ji Chen orders chicken and eats it at home. When Zhou Tian returns from the office, she sees him sitting like nothing happened. She shows him the recording, and he sees that she had placed the camera there. Then Ji Chen calls Kai Wei and gets the office files delivered to his home. When Zhou Tian falls asleep, Ji Chen starts working on office tasks. At night, when Zhou Tian wakes up, she looks at the camera and gets suspicious. Zhou Tian gets up and starts searching for Ji Chen. When Ji Chen senses that Zhou Tian is coming, he quickly puts his files aside. When Zhou Tian enters, the room is empty, and Kai Wei hides the files in a corner. However, Zhou Tian becomes suspicious and takes Ji Chen to her house. When they arrive, Kai Wei brings a file hidden under a box for Ji Chen, but Zhou Tian sees it and takes the file. Then, when Zhou Tian turns around, Kai Wei gives her another file. Ji Chen puts the file down and sits on the bed. Zhou Tian thinks, "What have they done now?" Ji Chen asks Zhou Tian, "Is there only one room in this house?" She replies, "Yes, there's only one room here." Ji Chen gets very happy, thinking, "I will sleep with Zhou Tian." But then, he has to sleep alone at night. At night, Zhou Tian enters his room, but only takes a pillow and leaves. Later, Ji Chen sneaks out, and as he is about to leave, a lot of bottles fall down outside the door. When Ji Chen tries to leave, the bottles fall, and Zhou Tian hears them. Zhou Tian asks him, "Where were you going?" He says, "I'm fine now." She replies, "No, you're not fine yet." Ji Chen says, "You made a good plan, but I'm perfectly fine now." She says, "You're not fine yet, go and rest." He replies, "I'm fine." Zhou Tian says, "All right, then we'll go jogging in the morning." The next morning, they go jogging, and Ji Chen gets very tired. Zhou Tian's mom calls and asks about Ji Chen's condition. Zhou Tian says, "Ji Chen is still not well." Ji Chen, hearing this, runs away quickly when he hears Zhou Tian's mom's concern. He keeps running until he gets too tired. Zhou Tian takes him home on a bicycle. On the other side, Zhang Hao finds out that Ji Nian is leaving the restaurant and becomes very sad. Afterward, Ji Chen and Zhou Tian return home from jogging. Ji Chen says, "I'm perfectly fine now." Zhou Tian tells him, "Now you're fine, so you can go back to your place." Ji Chen says, "No, I'm not going." Zhou Tian kisses him and says, "Go home." Ji Chen says, "Then you'll have to drop me off." Zhou Tian agrees and takes him to the door. When they reach the gate, they look at each other. Just then, the guard comes and says, "If you're not leaving, stay here with him." Upon hearing this, Zhou Tian runs away. In the next scene, both of them are brushing their teeth early in the morning. Then Zhou Tian, after getting ready, shows her selfie to Ji Chen, who looks at her selfie. Ji Chen then dresses up like Zhou Tian and gets ready as well, before coming to pick her up in his car. In the next scene, Zhou Tian and all the other employees are waiting for the elevator when it arrives. Ji Chen is already inside. When Zhou Tian enters the elevator, none of the other employees get in. Zhou Tian says to them, "Come inside the elevator," to which they reply, "Okay, you go ahead, we'll take the next one." Then Ji Chen closes the elevator doors, and the two of them are about to kiss inside. Just then, the elevator stops at the next floor, and the other employees see them. They quickly get inside the elevator and turn their faces to the other side. When the elevator reaches the top, all the employees rush out and run away. Later, Ji Chen is sitting in his office and sends a heart to Zhou Tian. She hits the heart with her file. After that, when Zhou Tian goes to have coffee, Ji Chen arrives and starts drinking her coffee. Ji Chen then says, "I'm working overtime tonight, so you should stay too." One of the office employees overhears this and goes to tell everyone, "No one needs to work overtime tonight." The workers respond, "We have a lot of work tonight." He tells them, "No, there won't be any work tonight." When the workday ends, Zhou Tian looks back and sees that all the workers have disappeared. When Ji Chen arrives, Zhou Tian tells him all the workers have left. Ji Chen replies, "Isn't it better that they've all left? Let's go to the meeting room now." So they both go to the meeting room. When they enter the meeting room, they find all the employees already there. Ji Chen and Zhou Tian look at them, and all the employees look at them. Then, everyone runs away. Later, when Zhou Tian and Ji Chen are leaving for home, Ji Chen asks her, "Where are we going now?" Zhou Tian replies, "We'll go to our own homes." Then, Zhou Tian runs off. Meanwhile, Jinian is leaving the restaurant feeling very sad because no one stopped her. Then, when Zhang Hao arrives at the restaurant, Xin shows him Jinian's last video. Later, Ji Chen and Jinian are having dinner together. On the other hand, Zhou Tian meets Zhang Hao and asks him, "Why didn't you tell Jinian your feelings? Why didn't you propose to her?" Zhang Hao responds, "If I proposed to her, I'm afraid it would affect her studies." Zhou Tian says, "All right, do what you have to. I'm leaving now." She then walks away. When Jinian, feeling down, is heading to the airport, Zhang Hao arrives and apologizes to her. He says, "I didn't understand your feelings." Jinian hugs him and then leaves. In the next scene, Ji Chen and Zhou Tian are playing with Chu Chu. Zhou Tian says, "It's time for Chu Chu to get married now. We should arrange its wedding." Ji Chen replies, "I won't let Chu Chu marry anyone." Then Zhou Tian's mom calls her and says, "She has found another cat for Chu Chu and is coming to fix the date." Zhou Tian says, Ji Chen won't agree. Ji Chen overhears this and thinks they're talking about fixing Zhou Tian's date. Ji Chen becomes very worried and thinks, "Why is Auntie doing this?" In the next scene, Zhou Tian goes to meet her mom at a restaurant and asks, "Why are you doing this with Chu Chu?" Her mom replies, "Chu Chu is of marriageable age. This is good for her." Zhou Tian says, "Do whatever you want. I'm leaving. I'm running late for work." She then leaves Chu Chu with her mom and goes. Zhou Tian's mom is still at the restaurant when Ji Chen arrives and asks, "Why are you in such a hurry to fix a date? Why are you doing this?" Zhou Tian's mom replies, "It's very important." Ji Chen then says, "I'll take care of all the arrangements." Zhou Tian's mom gets very happy and says, "Let me know once you've arranged everything." Ji Chen thinks they're talking about fixing Zhou Tian's date, so he's a bit confused. Ji Chen starts making the arrangements. He sends Kai Wen to a shop to buy a ring. He also asks Zhou Tian to pick a ring. Ji Chen tells Zhou Tian, "When you find a ring you like, let me know." Zhou Tian goes outside and her friend says to her, "Ji Chen is making you do this. Seems like he's going to propose to you. Just tell him the ring you want." Zhou Tian then picks a ring and goes inside. At that moment, Zhou Tian gets a call from her mom and she steps aside to talk to her. Ji Chen watches her and becomes very upset, saying, "Why is Auntie in such a hurry to fix a date?" When Zhou Tian finishes her call and returns, Ji Chen asks, "What did Auntie say?" She replies, "Nothing," and then runs off because Qiao Yi called her. Ji Chen follows her. Zhou Tian is riding her bike when Ji Chen arrives in another car and starts following her. Zhou Tian sees Ji Chen chasing her, so she stops and says, "Why are you following me?" Ji Chen says, "I asked you a question, but you didn't answer me." Zhou Tian asks, "What question?" Just then, Zhou Tian's mom calls her, and she answers. Her mom tells her, Ji Chen has sent gifts for the wedding. Zhou Tian asks Ji Chen, "Did you send gifts to my house?" Ji Chen replies, "Yes, I did. I'm telling you, it's my first time making wedding arrangements. I don't know what to do." Zhou Tian asks, "Do you want to marry me?" He replies, "Yes." Zhou Tian says, "Why the rush to marry now? We don't know each other well. We've only been together for 4 months." He says, "So what? We're together day and night." Then Jotian starts to leave. Ji-chen stops her and says, "Take my car, it's better." They both get in his car and drive off. Next scene, Ji-chen and Jotian are together, and Ji-chen asks her, "Will you marry me?" Jotian replies, "Yes, I will marry you." Then Ji-chen asks her again, and Jotian says, "Yes, I will marry you." Ji-chen asks for the third time, and Jotian shouts, "Yes, I will marry you!" Everyone sitting there starts looking at them. Then, the two of them hug each other. In the next scene, Choo-Choo's wedding is happening. While they're having the two cats shake hands, one of the cats runs away. In the next scene, Qiao Yi enters the company and sees that his posters are being taken down. He gets really angry and goes to Ji-chen's office to talk. Ji-chen tells him, "Choo-Choo has become the new star, and you're now number 2. You'll have to get back to number 1. Next, Jotian and Ji-chen go to the airport to see off Zhang Hao, who is going abroad for training. Ji-chen asks him, "When will you be back?" Zhang Hao replies, "I'll be back soon." Ji-chen tells him, "When Jinian's studies are finished, I'll get you both married." Hearing this, Zhang Hao gets happy. Then, Jotian sees Qiao Yi at the airport, hiding his face. But Jotian recognizes him and asks, "Where are you going?" He replies, "I'm going abroad too, just to travel." In the next scene, Jotian is on her way to a meeting, and Ji-chen follows her, asking her about which flowers they should have for the wedding. But Jotian doesn't respond to his questions and goes into the meeting. Next, Ji-chen brings Jotian to the court and says, "Let's get married today." Jotian replies, "I can't get married like this without my mom and dad." Just then, her mom and dad arrive, and then their wedding takes place. And with that, the drama ends happily. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more dramas like this.